Judging someone based on their appearance is a mistake people often make without realizing the depth of their error. Sometimes those judgments seem harmless, but other times they lead to moments so profoundly eye-opening that they change lives forever. Today we're diving into a story that proves just how wrong assumptions can be and how they can lead to unexpected and humbling consequences. Picture this: a seemingly ordinary afternoon in an upscale store, the kind where luxury radiates from every corner. In walks a young black girl, quietly browsing, minding her own business. She's polite, unassuming, and just like anyone else in the store, there to shop. But to one particular white woman, this girl doesn't seem to belong. She sees her presence as a problem and decides to intervene. What follows is a chain of events that reveals much more than either of them could have anticipated. This story isn't just about a moment of prejudice. It's about how power, truth, and humility can collide to create a lesson no one involved will ever forget. Stay tuned to see what happens when a father, a man who holds more influence than anyone could have imagined, steps into the situation and changes everything. By the end of this tale, we're reminded of a timeless truth. It's not wealth, status, or appearances that define a person's worth, it's their character. So buckle up for a story that's sure to leave you thinking, questioning, and hopefully inspired to treat everyone you meet with respect, regardless of who they are or what they look like. Luxury boutiques have a reputation for exclusivity, a place where only the wealthy and influential feel entirely at home. This particular store was no different. It was the kind of place where employees greeted customers with subtle nods, where displays were carefully curated, and where the price of an item was rarely discussed aloud. It was simply understood. On a quiet weekday afternoon, Maya, a young black girl, stepped into this world of luxury. She was here on a heartfelt mission to find a meaningful gift for her mother's birthday. Maya's outfit was simple: jeans, a hoodie, and sneakers. She wasn't here to make a statement, just to find something special for someone she loved. Moving quietly, she admired the fine jewelry and elegant handbags, taking her time as she browsed. She avoided touching anything unnecessarily, aware of the unspoken rules in spaces like this. But her demeanor wasn't enough to shield her from judgment. Across the room, Judith, a white woman in her late 50s, stood near a display of high-end scarves. She was a frequent visitor to the boutique and considered herself part of its elite clientele. Judith took pride in her status, believing that her presence alone elevated the atmosphere of the store. So when she noticed Maya walking through the aisles, she immediately felt her version of order disrupted. Judith's thoughts were unkind. She fixated on Maya's casual appearance and made an instant judgment. To her, Maya's presence was out of place, an intrusion into a space she believed should be reserved for people like herself. Without pausing to question her assumptions, Judith decided it was her responsibility to intervene. She approached Maya with purposeful steps, the sound of her heels echoing in the quiet store. When she reached her, Judith didn't hesitate. "Excuse me," she began, her tone clipped and condescending. "Are you lost? This store isn't for people like you." Maya, startled but maintaining her composure, turned to face Judith. She replied calmly, "I'm not lost. I'm just looking around." Judith's frown deepened. She wasn't satisfied with Maya's response. In her mind, someone like Maya shouldn't even consider entering a store like this, let alone browse its expensive merchandise. "Well," Judith said sharply, "you need to leave. This isn't some bargain store. You can't afford anything here." The words hung in the air, heavy with prejudice. Maya, unsure of how to respond, stood frozen for a moment. She had expected her visit to be a quiet, enjoyable experience, not an encounter like this. Other customers in the store began to take notice, their curiosity piqued by Judith's raised voice. Whispers started to ripple through the boutique as people watched the interaction unfold. Feeling emboldened by the lack of intervention from staff or other customers, Judith pressed on. "Honestly," she continued, "it's disrespectful for you to even be here. This is a place for people who appreciate quality and can afford it." Maya, still composed but beginning to feel the weight of the moment, replied, "I'm just here to find a gift for my mom. That's all." Her voice was steady, but her words only seemed to irritate Judith further. Judith scoffed loudly, waving a hand dismissively. "A gift? For your mom? In this store? Let's not pretend, dear. You should leave before you embarrass yourself any further." By now, the tension in the store was impossible to ignore. Employees exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to handle the situation. Customers murmured among themselves, some clearly uncomfortable with Judith's behavior, but unwilling to step in. And yet Maya stood her ground, determined not to let this woman's harsh words define her or her intentions. What no one, including Judith, could have anticipated was that this encounter was far from over. Unbeknownst to everyone, a powerful figure connected to Maya was about to enter the scene, and the unfolding events would leave a lasting impression on everyone in the store. Judith's frustration boiled over, and her voice grew louder, cutting through the quiet ambiance of the boutique. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she declared, waving her hand dismissively toward Maya. "I've been shopping here for years, and I've never seen someone come in here looking like this." Her words, dripping with condescension, caused several heads to turn. Shoppers began to pause their browsing, some exchanging uneasy glances, unsure if they should get involved. Judith wasn't finished. "This isn't some casual discount store where anyone can walk in," she continued. "People come here because they expect a certain level of exclusivity and class. You don't just stroll in off the street like you're window shopping." She motioned toward Maya's simple attire as if it confirmed her point. Maya, though hurt and embarrassed, refused to lower herself to Judith's level. Her voice was calm but firm as she said, "I have every right to be here. I'm just shopping like everyone else." Her quiet dignity only seemed to infuriate Judith further. Judith scoffed loudly, shaking her head. "Shopping?" she mocked. "Let's not kid ourselves. You can't afford anything here. Why waste everyone's time pretending otherwise? You're only here to cause trouble or take what doesn't belong to you." The venom in her words was undeniable, and they stung, but Maya stood her ground, refusing to let Judith intimidate her. The boutique's staff, caught in the crossfire, didn't quite know how to respond. A young sales associate, who had been folding scarves near the counter, hesitated, glancing nervously at her manager. Should they step in? What was the protocol for a situation like this? Judith, sensing the hesitation, seized the moment to assert her perceived authority. "Well," she snapped at the sales associate, "are you seriously going to let this person wander around your store like this? She's clearly up to no good. Do something." The sales associate, visibly uncomfortable, approached Maya hesitantly. Is there something I can help you with today?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. It was an innocent question, but before Maya could respond, Judith interjected sharply. "Help her? What she needs is the exit," Judith barked. "Honestly, I'm appalled that you're even entertaining this nonsense. You should be protecting the reputation of this store, not allowing people like her to loiter around." The tension in the room was palpable. The few other customers in the store seemed frozen, unsure whether to intervene or stay out of it. Some watched with disapproval etched on their faces. Others simply avoided eye contact, unwilling to get involved. But Judith stood tall, her arms crossed, as though she was single-handedly upholding the standards of the boutique. Maya, still composed despite the sting of the confrontation, responded calmly. "I don't need any help," she said to the sales associate. "I'm just browsing for a gift for my mom's birthday. That's all." Her words, though simple, carried a quiet strength. But once again, Judith wasn't willing to listen. "Browsing?" Judith repeated with exaggerated disbelief. "That's rich. A birthday gift? From this store? Don't insult our intelligence. You've had your fun pretending to fit in. Now it's time to go." Her voice was laced with finality, as though her word was law, and she expected Maya to obey without question. Maya stood silently for a moment, taking in the scene. Her calm demeanor never wavered, but inside she was tired of being underestimated, tired of the assumptions. Slowly, she reached into her pocket and took out her phone. She didn't raise her voice or make a scene. Instead, she quietly typed a message, her fingers moving deliberately over the screen. The store fell silent as customers and staff watched her, unsure of what to expect. Judith, however, remained smug, arms crossed, and a self-satisfied smirk on her face. She was convinced she had won, that Maya's silence was a sign of her defeat. "See," Judith said, addressing the onlookers. "She knows she doesn't belong here. This is what happens when you let just anyone into places like this." But Judith's confidence was about to be shattered. What she didn't realize, what no one in the store realized, was that Maya wasn't just anyone. Her father was someone very important. The message Maya had just sent was about to change everything, and the lessons that followed would leave everyone, including Judith, speechless. The tension in the store hung in the air as customers, staff, and Judith herself stood frozen in the aftermath of her harsh words. Maya remained composed, but inside she was bracing for what would come next. A few minutes later, the sound of the boutique's glass door opening broke the silence. A tall, confident man entered the store, his demeanor commanding attention without a single word. This was no ordinary customer. This was Mr. Harris, Maya's father and the CEO of the very luxury brand whose name adorned the boutique. As Mr. Harris scanned the room, his sharp eyes immediately found his daughter standing by the counter. A flicker of concern crossed his face, and without hesitation, he walked directly to her side. "Maya, are you okay?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with the kind of quiet authority that left no room for pretense. Maya gave a small nod, but her response was measured. "I'm fine, Dad," she said, glancing briefly at Judith, "but this woman says I don't belong here." Her voice was calm, but her words carried an unmistakable weight. Mr. Harris turned toward Judith, his expression unreadable, though the calm in his voice belied the strength of his presence. "Is that so?" he asked, addressing Judith directly. "And what makes you think you have the authority to decide who belongs in my store?" Judith's smug expression vanished in an instant, replaced by a look of shock. Her eyes widened as the realization set in. This wasn't just any man, it was him. She had seen his face before, in magazines, in interviews, even in photos displayed in the store itself. Mr. Harris was the visionary behind the brand, the very definition of success and refinement. Judith opened her mouth to respond, but her words faltered. I didn't know she was... I thought she was..." Her voice trailed off, and her confident posture collapsed into uncertainty. Mr. Harris, unbothered by her floundering, maintained his steady composure. "You thought she was what?" he asked pointedly, giving her no room to dodge the question. Judith's face flushed as she stammered. "I thought she might not be the kind of customer who could afford to shop here." She winced as the words left her mouth, realizing too late that she had only dug herself deeper into the hole she had created. Mr. Harris shook his head slowly, his voice calm but firm. "This store was built on principles of inclusion and respect," he said, addressing not just Judith, but everyone in the room. "We don't tolerate discrimination of any kind. You judge my daughter without knowing anything about her, simply because of how she looked, and that is unacceptable." Judith's confidence crumbled completely under the weight of Mr. Harris's words. She tried to explain herself, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean any harm. I just thought..." "You just thought you could judge someone's worth based on your assumptions," Mr. Harris interrupted, his tone now sharper. "That kind of thinking has no place here, or anywhere." Judith lowered her gaze, unable to meet his eyes. The reality of the situation hit her like a wave. Her prejudice had not only been exposed, but had also insulted the man who owned the very brand she claimed to cherish. Mr. Harris turned to the sales associate, who stood awkwardly near the counter. "Is this how you treat your customers?" he asked, his voice even, but with a distinct edge of disappointment. The associate, clearly shaken, quickly replied, "No, sir. This isn't how we operate. I didn't know what to do." "You always do the right thing," Mr. Harris said firmly, "no matter who the customer is. Do you understand?" The associate nodded quickly, her face a mix of apology and relief. Turning back to Judith, Mr. Harris delivered the final blow. "You've shown us all something today," he said. "Not about Maya, but about yourself. Prejudice has no place in this store or anywhere else. You've embarrassed yourself and proven how little you understand the values this brand represents." Judith, visibly shaken, muttered a weak apology. I didn't realize..." Mr. Harris cut her off with a curt nod. Perhaps this will be a lesson for you in the future, but for now, I think it's best if you leave. Judith glanced around the store, hoping for some kind of support, but found none. The other customers avoided her gaze, and the sales associate simply looked down. Realizing she had no other option, she turned and walked toward the exit, her once confident strides now replaced by a hurried shuffle. As the door closed behind her, Mr. Harris turned back to his daughter. "Are you sure you're okay?" he asked again. Maya smiled faintly, nodding. "I'm fine, Dad. Thanks for coming." "Always," he said, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. And with that, the moment passed, leaving a room full of people who had witnessed not just a confrontation, but a powerful lesson in humility and justice. Judith stood frozen, her face betraying a mixture of embarrassment and disbelief. For a moment it seemed as though she might attempt another excuse, but the weight of Mr. Harris's words silenced her. When she finally found her voice, her tone was soft and hesitant. "I didn't mean to offend anyone," she said weakly. "I just misunderstood the situation." Mr. Harris didn't so much as flinch. "Misunderstood?" he repeated, his voice calm but resolute. "You didn't misunderstand. You assumed. You judged my daughter based solely on her appearance. That isn't a misunderstanding. That's prejudice." He paused briefly to let the words sink in, then added, "Your behavior is unacceptable and reflects poorly not only on yourself, but on the values we stand for as a company and as a society." Judith opened her mouth as if to protest, but Mr. Harris continued, cutting off whatever excuse she was about to offer. "People like you are the reason we must constantly remind others about the importance of equality and respect. You judge someone without knowing anything about them, and today you were proven wrong. The lesson here is not just for you, but for everyone watching. Actions like yours create division, and there is no place for that in this world or in my store." He turned to the nearest staff member, who was still lingering by the counter, visibly unsure of how to proceed. "Please ensure that she leaves the store immediately," he said firmly. "Her presence is no longer welcome here." Judith's face turned an even deeper shade of red. She tried to mumble another apology, but the moment for contrition had passed. She glanced around the store, seeking any sign of sympathy, but all she found were disapproving stares from the other customers. Realizing she had no other choice, she picked up her purse and slowly made her way to the door, her once confident demeanor reduced to a defeated shuffle. The sound of the door closing behind her marked the end of her unwelcome presence. As the tension in the room began to ease, Maya turned to her father. Her voice was steady, but there was a quiet strength behind her words. "Thank you for standing up for me, Dad," she said. "It means a lot." Mr. Harris smiled faintly, his gaze softening. "I'll always stand up for you," he replied. "But this isn't just about you, Maya. This is about ensuring that no one else has to experience something like this. It's about holding people accountable when they think it's acceptable to treat others unfairly." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe this will be a lesson for her," she said, her tone resolute. "And for anyone else who thinks they can get away with treating people like that. We can't let moments like this slide." Around them, the other shoppers began to clap quietly, their way of showing support for Maya and Mr. Harris. The sound was neither loud nor ostentatious, but it carried an unmistakable sincerity. The staff members, who had been silent throughout most of the ordeal, stepped forward now. One of them, the associate who had hesitated earlier, spoke up. "Mrs. Harris, I'm so sorry for what happened," she said. "We should have handled that situation better. It won't happen again." Maya offered the associate a reassuring nod. "I hope it doesn't," she said. "Not for anyone. Moments like these are a chance to reflect and grow, for all of us." As the room began to return to normal, Mr. Harris placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Let's finish what you came here for," he said. "This is still your day." Maya smiled, her composure unshaken despite everything that had transpired. She knew this moment would stay with her, not as a memory of humiliation, but as a testament to her strength and the importance of standing up against injustice. She also knew her father's actions had turned what could have been a disheartening experience into a powerful reminder of the values they both held dear. And as they resumed their shopping, the lesson lingered in the air. a quiet but firm declaration that respect and equality were not optional. They were non-negotiable. This story serves as an important reminder that prejudice, in any form, undermines the fabric of our society. It exposes the dangers of allowing assumptions to dictate actions and highlights how much harm can stem from a single moment of judgment. Judith's actions were a glaring example of how preconceived notions can lead to mistreatment, embarrassment, and division. Her behavior wasn't just offensive, it was a reflection of deeper issues that too often go unchecked. What stands out most, however, is the way Maya and her father responded. Maya, though hurt, maintained her composure. She didn't retaliate with anger or aggression, even when subjected to unprovoked hostility. Instead, she remained calm, letting her dignity speak volumes. Her grace under such difficult circumstances showed not only her strength of character, but also her understanding of the bigger picture. She refused to stoop to Judith's level, proving that integrity is far more powerful than ignorance. Mr. Harris's response was equally significant. His calm but firm approach ensured the situation was addressed without escalation. He didn't raise his voice or resort to theatrics. Instead, he allowed the truth to be its own force. His words weren't just a defense of his daughter, they were a broader message to everyone present, a call to recognize and reject behavior like Judith's. By holding Judith accountable, he demonstrated that silence in the face of injustice is not an option. He used his authority not to intimidate, but to educate, reminding everyone that respect and equality are principles that must be upheld in all spaces, at all times. The reactions of the bystanders also play an important role in this story. Initially hesitant, they eventually showed their support for Maya and her father. While their silence at the beginning reflected the fear or uncertainty many people feel in such situations, their eventual applause signified an acknowledgement of what is right. It's a reminder that even when we don't know how to act, standing up for others is always the right choice. This incident holds lessons for all of us. It challenges us to examine our own biases and to ask ourselves how we might unconsciously contribute to or enable discrimination. It also reminds us of the power of leadership, whether in a family, a community, or a workplace. People like Mr. Harris demonstrate how leading with courage and integrity can inspire change and set an example for others to follow. Most importantly, the story highlights the resilience of individuals like Maya, who endure such moments with strength and resolve. Her ability to rise above the situation, rather than being diminished by it, serves as a testament to her character and to the importance of self-respect in the face of adversity. And as for Judith, she left the store a changed woman, not because she wanted to be, but because she had to be. The weight of her actions, the public condemnation, and the undeniable truth spoken by Mr. Harris forced her to confront what she had done. Whether she learns from the experience or not, one thing is certain: the moment will remain with her, a stark reminder of the harm caused by prejudice and the necessity of treating others with respect. For the rest of us, let this story be a call to action. Let it remind us to challenge assumptions, confront injustice, and, above all, to ensure that the values of equality and respect guide our actions in every interaction. The true meaning of class is not found in wealth or status, but in how we treat one another. Thank you for spending your time with us today and for listening to this story of courage, accountability, and the profound impact of standing up for what's right. This wasn't just a tale about one individual's prejudiced actions. It was a lesson in the strength of character, the importance of equality, and the power of speaking up. It reminds us all of the responsibility we carry in our daily lives, not only to treat others with dignity and respect, but also to challenge moments of injustice when we see them. If this story moved you, made you think, or inspired you to reflect on your own actions and assumptions, we encourage you to take a moment to share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. Whether it's a friend, a colleague, or a family member, spreading these lessons can make a difference. Together, we can create a culture where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their appearance or background. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. What did this story mean to you? Have you ever been in a situation where you had to confront bias, either your own or someone else's? Your experiences and insights are a vital part of these conversations. Please share them in the comments below, as your voice can inspire and guide others. And if you'd like to hear more stories that shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of navigating our shared humanity, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you'll join a growing community of people committed to making the world a kinder, fairer, and more understanding place. Remember, each of us has the ability to make a difference. Through our actions, our words, and even our silence, when it's used to let others speak. Kindness and respect are not just ideals to aspire to, they are choices we can make every day. So as you go about your life, consider the legacy you're creating with every interaction. Are you leaving people better than you found them? Thank you again for being part of this journey with us. Together, let's continue to amplify stories that matter and build a world where everyone feels they belong.